Hey everyone. My guest today is a fellow YouTuber and endurance runner who's just recently completed his second marathon by running the back roads around his house. Over the last 20 weeks, he's been documenting his training journey to that marathon, and his growth as a content creator has truly been astonishing. So without further ado, everyone, please join me for my conversation with the amazing Chris Furlong. Hi, everyone. My guest today is a fellow runner and YouTube host from Melbourne, Australia. His in-depth vlogs have provided invaluable information and motivation for others getting started on their own running journey. And over the last 20 weeks, he's been detailing his own journey to a second marathon. He's just posted the results of that marathon yesterday, so I'm really excited to have the opportunity to speak with the upbeat and amazing Chris Furlong. Thank you for being here, Chris. It's really a thrill to have you.
Thanks for having me, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I kind of tried to put some thought into keeping it short, but at the same time, every word in there matters to me because you've really been just an inspiration to so many people. I was lucky enough to discover your channel. I don't know, I want to say 5 or 6 months back when you're just getting into this training journey. And it's really been awesome to watch you grow as a runner and as a person. And it's a thrill for me to have you. So thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate being here. And it's a great opportunity to be able to connect. I haven't done it too much, but I'm hoping to do a bit more of it. And I think you've probably been able to take it as the first one off the rank. So good on you for jumping on the gun and actually getting that to happen straight away.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you being here, especially so fresh off of this marathon journey of yours. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. And just to kind of get started, I'm hoping that maybe we can go back in time a little bit. And if you could tell me a little bit about your athletic history, go back as far as you want to.
Yep. So it's a bit of a funny question because don't really have a bit of an athletic background at all. I guess, maybe as a child or as a kid, there was always, doing soccer or, kids sports and basketball and whatnot. But as I grew up, I probably moved away from the whole, well, whether it was exercise and athletic background. And it was probably when, probably 18, 21, I was actually kind of overweight, and I started to realize that I needed to make a change, and then that alluded to eventually going into more of the running. But from an athletic background, I've always been happy to get into some sports, help here or play there with friends and whatnot, but nothing very, I wasn't, I didn't grow up with like, oh, I'm going to be out doing this and I'm training to be something in the future, but it was more just a hobby or at school and things like that.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So at what point did you find running? Like what got you started actually wanting to be a runner?
It's definitely probably come back from a weight loss perspective. So it would have been probably back in 2016. Yes, about probably 5 years ago, to be honest. So I'd already done a bit of a weight loss journey just in terms of I cut out sugar and I was doing physical exercise, etc. But then I started doing more running as well, and I actually was struggling to do the running because I was getting shin splits. And like a newbie getting into running, you just kind of pick up any runners and you go for a run. And
Yep.
I kept getting a lot of shin splits, and it was probably to do with being overweight and stuff. So that kind of pushed me away from it. But then I was very keen to do it because I wanted to add that extra level of exercise into getting fit. So I went to the local shoe shop and got checked out, and they gave me the shoes and all that jazz. And I remember when I wore those shoes and then did the first run or whatever it was like a Forrest Gump moment, because all of a sudden there was no pain and I was able to run, and I was like, oh, this is great, right? And you feel like $1,000,000. So it was that moment that I realized, okay, I want to do this a bit more. And I was kind of just, I think I was only doing it once a week, maybe on Saturdays or Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon. It was kind of like, I had scheduled it out routine based in terms of, okay, I'm going to do 3K or whatever it is. And I remember starting that, and it was kind of like, you know, I would run and then have to walk, run, have to walk. But then as I started to do it more, I didn't have to walk as much. And then it was that from that, it kind of snowballed. And that's when I started to get the, you know, the joy, the enjoyment and the love of running, which eventually evolved into more than just a weight loss thing, but something that I love to do.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm glad to hear that you started off properly by getting fitted at a running store. That's one of those things I just probably harp on a little bit too much on my channel. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that.
You wouldn't know any other way, right? Like, I guess, you know, if someone says I'll go for a run, I mean, at the end of the day, you wouldn't know to go get shoes, because if you've got shoes, it's like, well, let's go run. But then as you start to do it more, it's kind of like, okay, something's not right. And I think some people probably just don't even think about it. They just think, yeah, it's not meant for me, and they kind of give it up, right? But, you know, I wasn't going to give up that easy, because I'm like, well, you know, I need to do it. So it's like, let's figure it out. If, you know, why can't I do this, and then move forward.
Good for you. Good for you. So tell me a little bit more about, like, bring us into sort of your modern era. Maybe pick up like just before you started marathoning in 2019.
Yep.
What is your training? What did your training schedule look like then, and how has it evolved over time? And you can talk about your cross training and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think, I mean, so I guess before marathon, first half marathon, I guess prior to doing a half marathon, I was only really doing, you know, 5K a week kind of thing, right? That was because I never had, I mean, if you had asked me 5 years ago, you know, would you ever run a marathon? Would you ever run a half marathon? Would you even do races? I would have said, no, I'm not interested, because it was more about the weight loss. So it was kind of, I guess, it was personal in the sense that maybe I was embarrassed kind of thing. So, you know, I didn't really want to go out and try and bring attention to me. And then at the same time, I'm doing a vlog, so it's a bit weird. But anyway, we can get to that. But so I guess, you know, when I started a 5K, and then when I started doing my actual YouTube, when I did my first 10K, to me, that was like, this is a big deal. And then progressing from 10K, I got to 15K, and then I did an actual first race. And then, so I guess at that point, I was probably only doing maximum, you know, 20K a week, you know, when I was training for a 15K, right? Because I was maybe doing a 5K, and then, you know, through the week, maybe some smaller ones. But as I've progressed to doing half marathons, and now I can say multiple marathons, it's, you know, they have varied from that 20K to 50K weeks. And I mean, this year it's been a bit different because of the whole situations with the pandemic, but, you know, traditionally, you know, I'm usually commuting to work, which is an hour and a half, and commuting back from work, which is an hour and a half. So a lot of my running was happening after hours, and I was also doing the longer stuff on the weekend. So I was probably only doing maybe 3 to 4 runs a week. Whereas now that I've been working from home, I've actually been able to do 4 to 5, well, actually been doing 5, which obviously I can do in the morning, I can do it when I want to, don't have to worry about, you know, being tired or sitting on a train and things like that. So to break it down, it's probably 5 runs a week, ranging between 20 to 50 kilometers. And then in terms of cross training, so over the years, I've gone through a number of different, I guess, routines or lack of routines. And, you know, when you get an injury, you realize, oh, I should have been doing this, or I should have been doing that. So over the years, and especially this year, I've now just got, like, every day, every morning, I just do a, you know, 15-20 minute routine of like yoga, mobility, strength. And that way I'm getting something which is consistent, rather than just trying to bundle it in 1 30-minute, 1 hour session once a week. And then if I need to do more, I can, but at least I've got kind of a baseline which is happening regardless if I'm running or not. Whereas previously I used to kind of have to force that happen, or I'd only do it when I was, you know, coming from an injury or something like that. But in order to prevent the injury, I need to be doing it as a, you know, regular. And I've now realized that, you know, running isn't just running, it's the stuff before the run, it's the run, and then it's the stuff after the run too. So, right. And it starts to build out quite a lot. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear you say all that, because it's such an important part. You know, especially new runners, they get out there and like 6 to 8 weeks in, they'll hurt themselves because, you know, they start to feel good. You know, their heart isn't beating out of their chest, and they start pushing themselves too hard. And the next thing you know, it's an injury because they haven't cross-trained, they haven't stayed limber, you know. So, you know, kudos to you for having realized that right from the start. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, no, well, it wasn't from the start, but I think I've learned the lessons over the years early enough to now realize, well, if I want to be more serious about it, I have to put in the work, right? Like otherwise it's just not going to happen. And I think that's been evident from my last marathon to this marathon is, you know, I've come out stronger and I've recovered quicker kind of thing. So
Good for
that
you.
it's quite evident that it's paid off.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Glad to hear it. So I want to take the opportunity to, because you mentioned moving from 5K to 10K, half marathon, kind of, you know, the standard progression, sort of going further over time. Talk a little bit about your the highlights of your running career. What are the races, or even go beyond races? It doesn't have to be. We don't have to talk times. We don't have to talk distance.
Yep.
I'm more than happy to hear about that. But what else beyond races has running brought to you that stand out as highlights of your running career?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, tradition. Yeah. So I guess if we take it back, the weight loss, and I think as I started to progress with the running and realizing that each run I do, you know, I'm feeling a little like I can grow a bit more. Right? You get that endorphin rush, or you get the adrenaline rush, and I think that's what I loved because I'm very self motivated when it comes to if I'm seeing growth, tangible growth. I kind of get addicted to it because I like, you know, I like tracking all the stats and stuff like that. So, you know, if I did a first run and it took, let's say I did 3K and it took, you know, 20 minutes. And then the next time I did it and it was 19 minutes and 30 seconds, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting better, right? You know, it's that fresh mentality, which a lot of people do go through. But I think from that, I was very excited. And the first couple of years I was just trying to see how fast I could go, not knowing, you know, how maybe stupid it was at the time. But for me, that's what I loved about it, right? And I think then as I started to progress, you know, I was still running, you know, just the 5Ks. And when I guess I was probably just chatting to friends and they're like, oh, you should do a 10K. And to me, it was like, I was so nervous. Like, even though I was doing it with no one else around, to me, it was like, you know, I have to like, I don't know, it was a big deal. And it was just because it was part of your mentality. You've never, you know, whenever you do that kind of thing, you know, it's a big deal because you've never even thought of doing it. You're about to go through a bit of pain. You know, back then a 10K was like a marathon to me because it's like, you know, how am I going to do this? So then doing that, you know, all of a sudden I'm like, okay, wow, this is good, right? And you get that bit of a rush from it. But, you know, I probably only did a 10K once every blue moon. Like I wasn't doing it very regularly. To me, that was my ultimate. And then, funny enough, when I met my girlfriend, I found out she was a runner. I didn't know she was a runner.
Oh, wow.
And then, well, she wasn't my girlfriend at the time, but then, you know, once I got to know her and stuff, you know, she was a runner, and I'm like, oh, this is great, and you know, we could start to run together. And then when we started going out, obviously, she's been a big role model in terms of, you know, not challenging me, but like, you know, I known she had done some longer distances and saying, oh, you should try this or do that. Which then prompted me to sign up for my first race, which was something here in Australia, Melbourne, called Run for the Kids, where basically you just, you know, run for charity to raise money for, you know, disabled children or, you know, unfortunate children in sick or diseases, right? Yep. And so that was for 15K. So that was like my first one that I had to train for. Right. And then I probably actually, that was probably maybe the first series I did as well on my, probably wasn't a big series, but just I started to track it a bit on my YouTube as well. So that kind of got me into that mentality of like, I'm enjoying the documenting and seeing the progression. And then from that, it's kind of snowballed into and now that's an annual race that I do. So it snowballed into something as a regular routine. So then it was kind of like, well, naturally the next thing up would be a half marathon, right? And then, so then training for the first one, obviously that was a big deal. And then after I did it the first time, so I remember when I did the first one, which must have been 2018, the first half marathon, you know, it's taken me 3-4 years to get to that point. But then after I had done it, it was like I did another 4 or 5 within the next 6 months, just because it was training or I was out and about. So all of a sudden that mentality was just gone of like, how do you do this? It was kind of like, okay, it's easy now. Well, not easy, but like, you know, that, you know,
It's familiar. It's familiar.
Yeah. So it makes it a bit easier to not have to worry about, obviously every run's different, but there was not this challenge of like, I can't do this, and they became easier. And I would have to say, I think a half marathon is probably my favorite distance, just because it's probably been the one which has been the most, it seems, and look, I think as I do more and more marathons, it might change as well, but I've enjoyed doing the half because it's at that distance which it challenges you, but it's in reach of where I can probably really start to test myself as well, like, you know, push some boundaries.
Yeah.
So that's what I've enjoyed. And, you know, then doing my first marathon training, once again being a beast, but then, you know, I was doing a half marathon every second week basically for training. So it was kind of like you just get used to it.
Yep.
And, you know, doing the first half marathon, that was an emotional experience. And then doing the first marathon, it's even more of an emotional experience. And then now doing the second, it's been a crazy journey. But between all that, I've also picked up a bit of trail running as well. So obviously this year it's kind of been off the books because I've been in lockdown since, well, I've been working from home since March this year. So
same here.
and, you know, and then we've been in actual 5-kilometer lockdown radius since June. So like, you know, I haven't been able to get out and do the trails other than around home. So I'm so fortunate where I live. But so over the last few years, there was a series that when I say series, it was a race series called the Trail Running Series. And basically I'll pick 5 or 6 different locations, and you can do between, you know, a short, medium and large distance, kind of like between 5 and 22 kilometers kind of thing. And I went to that series intending to do it, but I actually had an injury at the time. So I offered to film for them because they knew I was doing a YouTube. They gave me some free race access for my girlfriend, so she was able to run and go to the races for free while I was doing the filming. And it was a really good experience to be able to just get involved. And I've then been I helped do it the second year as well, but then now that I've been running it, I wasn't filming the behind the scenes and stuff as much. So but over the years I've progressed in doing not just one of those. I was able to do, you know, I think, yeah, each year I've probably done 4 of the 5 just because of timing. I was away or something, but, you know, they do it across multiple different locations in Victoria State. So you get some beach running, you get some, you know, some real messy, muddy mountain running, and then you get some, you know, a lot of different things. So that's been really fun as well. And bringing that into it, because my girlfriend, she's loved trail running always. So she kind of brought me into that zone. And now there's an annual race that I do called the 2 Bays Trail Run, which is about 28 kilometers. And it's running from one bay to another bay, hence 2 bays. And, you know, that was my first big event after doing my half marathon before doing a marathon. And
that's interesting. That's a great distance too, because it kind of gives you an extra between the half and the full.
And the elevation is about 800 meters. So it's a lot different to anything. So training for that was, you know, I mean, well, I didn't train probably enough for it. It was a lot more of a challenge because not used to the hills and all that jazz. But once again, it's a different experience. And that was the first race I've done with a cutoff. So I had a 4-hour cutoff. So the first year I did it 3 hours and 56 minutes, I think. And then the second year it was like 3 hours and 40 or something. So that's always a fun one to do as well. So huge range of different highlights there. You know, lots of different things. But yeah, I think my favorite's probably been doing the halves and the trail runs, just because that's more of a bonding thing with my girlfriend. But, you know, now doing the last marathon, you know, training for that, I think, and because of the situation, it's become a bit more of an emotional journey, just because I've learned so much about myself and having to run by myself. And, you know, it's probably, I cherish it as well, because I've had to really dig deep and kind of chip away at some of the things to get through it. Right. And I think that's also something that I treasure from it.
Well, that's awesome. And it's a perfect lead into what my next question is going to be, because, you know, I kind of wanted to give you the opportunity in whatever way you want to attack it, and just talk about everything to do with how the inception of the idea of how you were going to document your latest build up towards your second marathon.
Mm-hmm.
How I know your YouTube channel already existed, so I guess it was kind of a natural fit to document the training. But did that just happen sort of naturally, or was it something that you thought did you pre-plan that? Walk us through the whole process, not just of training, but of your documentation on YouTube as well.
Yep. No, it's a good question. So if I look back over the last few years, I had always been, I guess, I kind of, whenever I had it's probably one race event a year that I'd really focus on training for. I mean, there's, the smaller ones, but it might have only been a 4-week or 5 week. So I might not be documenting it very detailed, but just, kind of saying, oh, this week I'm training for this kind of thing. But when I did my first half marathon, I did it really detailed, and I did that. Well, sorry, not as detailed as I did this one, but I was doing basically, I shared a video per run, but it was a lot more rushed. But back then I enjoyed it. I just loved being able to go run, share, and then kind of release kind of thing. And then I've done that slightly different over the years. And then I did the same thing for my first marathon as well. But I think from that, you learn lessons, right? You learn what works, what I did enjoy, and obviously with time management and stuff. And then this year, I actually, at the start of this year, I hit a bit of a down point in terms of what was happening on YouTube, and just, I mean, with everything going on as well, I was struggling to find something to stick. Like, I was just kind of pushing out content because I knew I wanted to keep weekly, but it just wasn't real. I was just forcing it for the sake of it. So then I knew that, well, come June, I was going to be documenting. I wanted to document for the series regardless. And, I started to get a bit more intentional with that. And in probably 4 weeks before doing that series, I had released a couple of videos where I probably had a bit of a different motivation in how I was wanting to do my videos, just trying to share a bit more with intent. And, just from some of the stuff, I think the pandemic in this sense has probably helped with that, because it kind of gave me perspective on things. And, I'm like, okay, well, I want to share this journey. And I was excited to do it because it was kind of getting me out of that dry rut of creativity. So then writing down, what are the things I wanted to see. So I kind of actually, did a bit of journaling and envisioned what would I want to be seeing, and the usual stuff, stats and all that jazz. But then as I started to do it, I realized, well, time's going to be a bit of an issue, because even though I'm working from home, I'm just always on. And so I'm a project manager. I work in the IT industry. So even though I'm not necessarily in the office, I always find I'm always doing extra work, just because you're always on. And, that became a bit of a struggle. So I'm like, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to edit, a video per run. It's just not going to happen. I just don't have the time. And I didn't want to go into that routine of getting stuck of, being a couple of weeks behind. I wanted to try and keep it a week, week maximum behind. So I did a first couple of videos, and they were small anyway, because the first couple of weeks are quiet, right? Not big weeks. So I was able to pump them out quite quickly. They were 10, 15 and 20-minute videos. And then I started, naturally, the videos were just coming longer, and I was struggling to get it down to something shorter. And I was just like, well, there's stuff in here I want to share. If I was a runner, I feel like this stuff has value. And then I realized I wasn't just sharing running stuff. I was sharing stuff, outside of that, which was influencing my running, whether it was audiobooks or just things going on, and just life advice, or just, trying to be authentic, just kind of sharing the things I'm going through. And so the video started to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I remember doing the one which was more than 25 minutes. I'm like, I just got to do it, right? And I was worried that people wouldn't watch it. And then it was like the most watched of my last 10 videos. And then I did the next one, which was longer. And then I just I don't care anymore how long they are, as long as it's got the content that I want in there.
Yep.
And, they've all been, quite successful. But, there's been a few dips, and then I've been able to really learn a bit more about myself in terms of the content that I want to be sharing more and more. And because I realized half the content wasn't even running. I've got people joining my channel, which, they're just here because they're enjoying the journey, but, they found it because of the audiobook, or I was talking about this, or I was, because I wasn't just running. And that, to me, I realized that what's funny was I had always been doing this with any of my runs. Any run that I go, I take my GoPro and I film. And if something's on my mind, I talk about it. But I just wasn't necessarily sharing it, like putting it on YouTube, because I was worried that people wouldn't like it. And then I realized doing this series, I've been doing that, and people have been reacting in so many different ways that I did not expect. And I'm like, well, why wasn't I doing this earlier? And then I guess that's brought the whole series together and documenting it. And I think it's kind of evolved and taking people's feedback, oh, it'll be cool to see this, answering questions. And it's kind of just snowballed into what it's become. And then, I mean, I've always wanted to document, any race video I do, I document and share it anyway. So now talking about the actual marathon itself, but leading up to it, I realized because I was becoming, I guess, with all the circumstances changing, I've brought everyone on a journey. I'm thinking, okay, I feel like there's two things that I wanted to get out of documenting the actual marathon. It's one was, if you're a runner, to make sure that they're going to be able to watch something and resonate with it, really feel everything that I've just felt. They're like, that's what I felt as well, or so it resonates, so it actually connects. And then the second thing was knowing that probably half of my subscribers, they don't run, right? They're probably just whether they're family or they're new people or they've come over from whatever reason. I wanted to make sure that they could get the experience of what it's like being a runner and help them understand the realities, the mental toughness, and just everything that you go through. Obviously, it was a little different this year, but it's the same for any marathon, whether it's with 1,000 people or not. There's going to be a journey of struggle and whatever, right? So this year just being a bit more special in that consideration, I wanted to really give it the justice it deserves. And the only way to do that was to be 100% authentic, real, and just, there wasn't much that I cut out of that series. Like some of it was just if I wasn't saying anything, like just because it was time wasted. But I tried to make sure when I was feeling something or experiencing something, that I pressed record first to make sure I could put it in, because in my past, I haven't done that. And I realized that, those things are probably what actually make the video so much more, I guess, juicy, right? Because this stuff's real. So that was the intent there.
See, that's a huge insight right there. And speaking as a fellow YouTuber myself, I feel like I'm sort of, you're well ahead of me in making certain realizations about the content that you share, because that's what keeps me coming back to your channel, is that there's a certain genuineness to you. There's an openness to you that, the fact that you're sharing beyond, oh man, I really wanted to run that third interval at this, particular time. I kind of tend to do that. I've done a lot of that. And I think for the hardcore, runners, that's what they want. And I don't think there's anything wrong with sharing that. But I think what really adds a lot of soul to your channel is exactly that you go so far beyond that. You share the kind of things that are, could be seen as leaving you emotionally vulnerable, etc. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's a hard line for people to cross. And I'm trying to get there myself, but let me put it that way.
It's a good point. And I think, if you watch my content from the start of this year and the content I was releasing versus the content I'm doing now, I've gone through a real journey of self-awareness. And it wasn't because of the YouTube or me I want to do better on YouTube. It was because, there's other stuff going on in my life, which I've been using the running to help me dig through. And it's only through that it's kind of played full circle, and helped me really go on that self-awareness journey and realize, some of my videos, here I am talking about that, you can't control what you can't control, but you should control what you could, and all that jazz. And a lot of that was just me kind of half talking to myself, venting and sharing and trying to give, something of value back to other people. Because I realized, well, if I'm feeling this, there's probably people feeling something different or the same or similar, because we're all going through some weird and wacky and wonderful situations at the moment, and some better off and some, in a lot worse off situations. So I figured, well, the least I can do is try and give my holistic or, my understanding or my 2 cents, and try and share that love and help people realize that, you're not alone and all that. And so doing that, I've just tried to carry that same openness with everything, which I realized, well, is me anyway, but I probably was doubtful that I didn't want to show that. I was scared or whatever.
Yep.
And there's still a few things which I'm still getting to push. And, you know, I even was second guessing of what I was going to put in the marathon video. And I think it was the 27K that I did in I think it was like week 15 in the series. That was like, in that one, I actually, at the end of the video, I burst into tears. And I remember filming it and I was like thinking, do I put this in or do I not? And that was kind of like the spot where I realized, okay, now I have to do it, because if I don't, I feel like I'm not giving justice to what I'm sharing or trying to teach, right? Or document, because it's not that it's fake, but it was kind of like, I wanted to make sure that this is as real as it is. And if I want to prove to people that, I mean, because it wasn't tears of sadness, it was tears of joy.
Yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
I think people will experience that. And when they experience that for themselves, they realize just how important the running is, rather than just like, because people are like, oh, I don't want to run. And I'm like, you don't understand.
Yeah,
like,
it's not about the putting one foot in front of the other. That makes it so great.
exactly. And I guess everyone has their different whys, but I think that's really helped me establish my why. And I want to make sure people can understand that, you know, running doesn't have to be physical. It can be mental, it can be emotional, it can be all that jazz. So there's something there for everyone, right? And I think that was the only way I could really, give it the justice it deserved.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That really, really deep and wonderful insight there. You know, that's just, you know, well said and everything. It's just, that was great. You know, and you know, it's funny, just to switch gears a little bit here. One thing that you mentioned a few minutes back, when we started talking about this particular subject, you mentioned that you're an IT guy. And that's amazing to me, because I'm an IT guy. And I don't remember if I said this while before I turned on the recording, but I've done probably about a dozen of these interviews for my channel. And it's almost scary, the percentage of people who I've interviewed that I did not know going in were IT people that are IT people and runners at the same time. It's just,
I mean, in this day and age, I guess it's no, it's a fair point. I watched a video of someone else who had done a similar thing, a backyard marathon, and they had done an interview on him, and he was saying, he's an IT or analyst or whatever he was. I think sometimes the words can get a bit jumbled, or it's generalized, but I was just like, oh, that's interesting. And it's true. A lot of folks that I know as well are in this similar industry. So my girlfriend, she's in the same industry as well. So
that's something else. Yeah. Okay. So there's something about there's some kind of connection there. I'll have to do a little digging and see if anybody's done any kind of psychological tests to see what that connection may be.
I could probably put some ideas, but I don't want to incriminate myself.
That's awesome. All right. So just to move on to other things here a little bit, or just to push the ball forward a little bit. Now that you are past your second marathon, and before I forget, I want to do this on camera. Congratulations, because you killed it, sir. I really want to push everybody. Go check out Chris's channel, subscribe, and go through the backlog of the training. There's so much to learn there, physically, emotionally, intellectually, and you came through in the end, and it was such a tough journey. Not having to run that all completely by yourself, and you set your goals, and you were tough on yourself, but you did a great job, and I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
With all that said, sir, I really want to know, what, running wise specifically, what's got you motivated now, and what are your future running plans?
Oh, that's a good one. So there's two parallels to this. So running's not going anywhere. So going into this, I think. Okay, so originally I had planned to do the marathon for the Melbourne Marathon, and obviously that got pushed out, and I didn't want to delay all the way till December, because I was already targeting the 4th of October. And then it was more about, me quickly trying to find something that was virtual that I could get an official time, because I didn't want to do it and not have an official time. So I tried to get the London Marathon, but it was sold out. So, and that was going to be the same day. And I was like, so then it was like, oh, New York, it's 2 weeks. Yeah, I can kind of push out tape for a bit. That's not too bad. So I'm like, that makes sense. Now, going into that, I've had this bit of a, mentality. I'm like, oh, I could probably still do the Melbourne Marathon in December. So I'm still weighing up if I'm going to try and give it another go, or if I'm just going to focus on doing a half. I've been doing a bit of recovery runs this week and stuff. And, you feel a few things. So I'm just trying not to get too, not going too hard yet. So just giving it a few weeks to really realize, okay, am I recovering all good? And there's no hidden things behind that. And then I'll either try and aim to do it a half marathon, or maybe do a marathon again. Because I actually had another goal to try and beat to get a sub 2 hour half marathon this year. And I kind of pushed that away because I figured there's no point trying to focus on multiple goals if, with all the situations, let's just double down on the marathon. But now that that's all changed, it's like, I kind of I was thinking, if I don't get my goal for the marathon, maybe I've got a second chance in the same year versus, or do I, not overdo it with my body and just go for the half. So that one I'm still toying up. I'm not too sure yet. And I also want to chat to my girlfriend and figure out if she wants to do a half as well. Now, she lives quite far away from me, so we actually haven't seen each other since like July because of the lockdown situation. So she hasn't been training as much, and I don't want to put pressure on her to train. So it's kind of like, if she wants to do a half, if not, well, then maybe, I'll just focus on doing the marathon and try and use this as a bit of a foundation building. Now, with that said, regardless, I've got my third 2 bays trail run, which is I think it's on the 15th of January or early January 2021, which will be that trail run I said. So I'll be, if I'm not doing one of the other things, I'll be focusing my time on that for my next event. Otherwise, it will just be my usual running and whatnot in between. However, now that I've finished this series and, I kind of want to start to add in new things to my channel, just because, I feel like I've learned so much about myself, and there's been so much great feedback and what people have enjoyed. And I've actually been doing a lot of, brainstorming and kind of figuring out what that is. And there's a few things which I can't share just yet because, it's not public knowledge, but, there will be a big change to it, and it's a good change, I hope. And, I've been taking a lot of, and I've probably alluded to it a little bit in my channel along the way, that, some things will change and can't necessarily talk about it or whatever, but hopefully that will have a positive response. Running's not going anywhere, but I want to kind of bring in, and some of the questions that you've asked as well, it does allude to it as well, of, not just my running, but broader lifestyle as well, right? So trying to separate that out a bit more and build, the brand of my YouTube more around myself with the lifestyle of running. And, because I run, but let's be honest, running's just a small component of it for someone's life. So, and help bring that in a bit more and bring in some of the hobbies, some of the different side businesses or hustles I'm doing and things like that, just to, what have I got to lose to give it a go, right? So,
Exactly.
So I think over the next few weeks, people will see I've got to do the actual marathon recap, like actually deep dive and go through the stats and everything. And then one thing that I said I would do would be jumping into my YouTube analytics from the series and see how that's helped the channel. And I think that's something that I want to really keep consistent on the channel, is, as a small YouTuber, of what it's like, from a month to month perspective and trying different things. So taking away just focusing on running, but, I'm trying to build a channel, help other, creators and content creators, and also other runners as well. So bringing that variety in. I still need to do my book recap on The Alchemist while listening. I listened to it in the marathon, so which was so fitting for the marathon. It was really good. And then from that, there's a few other little things here and there. And then by that time, hopefully I'll have some other stuff I can share, which, will show a bit more of a horizon. But, there will still be the training series and things like that. It's probably just trying to find the pockets. So I'm very motivated, excited. I feel like I've got a great opportunity to ride. It's not a wave, but ride those that excitement and really trying to put in some good routines and habits of, getting out, probably hopefully a bit more regular content, because I won't necessarily continue to do 1 hour videos because I don't have to, because I'm not, training a week's worth of content.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I've also thought, if I end up doing another marathon, will I document it as detailed, or will I try and, spice it up a bit different or whatnot? So I've got a lot of options, so I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah, but I'm glad to hear that you're sort of gonna, at least you're gonna be anchoring it down with more of the same. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes,
I know,
yeah, correct.
every channel needs to grow and find new directions, but I'm glad to see that. I'm glad you've realized the value in what you've been doing. I guess it's probably the simplest way to say it. So I want to kind of jump back a little bit.
Yep.
As far as your timeline goes, just to get an idea, because there are a lot of, probably the vast majority of my subscriber base are fellow fellow YouTubers.
Yep.
So I think probably everybody's going to be curious to know what got you started down that road in the first place, even before you started marrying your running to YouTube.
Yep.
Let's
Yeah,
talk
no,
a little bit.
it's a good question. So, funny enough, and a lot of people don't realize this, is I've had my YouTube channel since 2011. So I've had it for a very long time. Now, back when I had it, it's a while ago. I just basically had put a couple of video gaming videos on there, because I had seen, as any young person does, you're watching YouTube and whatnot, and I saw other people doing it. I'm like, oh, I could do that. So, and they're now hidden because that's not what my content is, but I've still got them there. They were just for a couple of games. And then when I actually started, I mentioned it slightly, that when I started running, it was for weight loss and whatnot. But then once I got past that, and it was just, for me, it was running was coming to the point where, like, if I don't do my weekly run, I was going to be annoyed, like frustrated, and, leave me alone if I don't do my run, kind of thing. When I was running, I figured, well, where I live, if anyone's seen the footage, it is quite nice. I'm about 900 meters from the water. And I was feeling like, well, if I had a GoPro, I think maybe other people might like to look at this or see it. And, I had seen other people's content, not really around running. Running on YouTube wasn't a big thing back then. And this was probably around 2016, so a good 4 or 5 years ago, right? And I remember when the GoPro Hero, I think it was 5, came out. They released their video, and it just inspired me to go create. And I'm like, okay, I'm running. Let's get a GoPro and let's see what happens, right? And so I started doing it, and obviously, like any YouTuber or creator, you have expectation versus reality. And I'm like, this did not come out how I thought it was. Like, it's all rocky and shaky. That was all before stabilization and all that. So I'm like, okay, this is not going to be as easy as I thought. And then, so then I started to try and bring in a bit of a vlogging style. I've always been a bit of a blogger. So I've always had something to say, and I'm like, okay, how hard can it be? But, getting into the vlogging, it was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot harder than I expected as well. Cause you're talking to this camera, and still today, I guess being in ISO, it's kind of helped because you don't have people around you. So filming's really easy, but that's something I'm still working on as well, just, with other people and stuff. But I think for me, it was, I realized, well, I've got a GoPro and I like to run. So I may just share that and see what happens. And I figured others may enjoy seeing what I was seeing. And then I guess I wanted to just kind of document those journeys. And I was doing more vlog style when I started. Like, I guess I was influenced with Casey Neistat and the usual folks. But, for me, it was too much. I wasn't enjoying the effort because I was getting frustrated that I had this expectation versus reality, and it wasn't showing. So I was like, which if I don't get that, I get obviously disheartened, and it annoys me. Whereas doing the training series, I feel like I'm in my element because I'm sharing naturally. I'm not thinking. I don't have to try and plan out. And I was able to just do it 100%, knowing that everything I've done, I'm happy with. You still make mistakes or whatever, but that's just part of the video. Whereas, when I was trying to get that perfect creative shot or whatever, and then it comes out, I've just spent 30 minutes. I'm like, oh, this looks ridiculous. And So I guess that's why. And I think, I've tried to do a few different things on the channel, and there's been attempts of things in the past which I've always wanted to do, which I think now that I've learned some lessons and got it into it more of my, I guess, who I am or want to be. I think if I give those things another go, I would be able to do them quite well, because, I realized at the time maybe it was the wrong mindset, or yeah. So it's been a journey, but I think to bring it kind of back to, what prompted me to start it, I think it was just, I've always had that yearning to share and, create something. And I've done it through a number of different avenues, whether it was through blogging or a side business or something. So I figured, well, naturally I want to share. It was just more about, okay, what does that look like? And I guess it's been a journey ever since. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's great. And I think it what you just said about the starting of the YouTube. Yeah, I mean, it merges so perfectly with your story of your running experience. It's just, I see that how they grew almost, how one influenced the other, and vice versa. That's really neat. It's a very sort of natural progression there. So I want to talk a little bit, or have you talk a little bit about sort of the other side of that. How do you manage to balance YouTube, social media, a job, especially in the IT industry, which is no easy task, and family obligations? How do you, so many, I've heard so many completely different answers to this question. I'm just dying to hear what you have to say about it.
So I think the short answer is it's a fine juggling act, right? And it's not perfect. But I think, in the past, I've always kind of let work take over in these areas. And this year, it's probably hit me harder than any other years, because, with COVID and the pandemic, you start to realize, well, what's important to you, or what's of value to you, because all of a sudden, yes, you're still working, but, you're not spending money on certain things, or you start to realize what's really of value, right? Or you hear stories and whatnot. So that really put me into a bit of a, a kind of 360 view of myself. And, being working from home has enabled me to obviously, get into, filming a lot more. I can do it, every day when I'm running, when usually I'd have to do it, on the weekends and things like that. So I started to get into this mentality of like, okay, I'm really enjoying doing this, so I want to commit to it. But it was, I get very frustrated and I will always do it because, I have obligations to do it, is prioritizing work over those things, right? And that's why when I've been trying to juggle through, and it's probably been very clear in my videos when I've had a bad day or I'm very frustrated and all that, is because, I haven't been able to put the love and attention that I've wanted to put into the videos, but I've had to work or I've had to whatever, right? And that's been very difficult and been quite frustrating. And, it's a continuous journey to try and separate the two and get better routine and balance and lifestyle. But I think some of the quick wins for me has been, I've been doing YouTubing for a while, so I've got a nice workflow and I know what I need to be able to do it. And I think from my training series, it's quite, I'm not saying it's easy to do, but because I'm just filming the experience on the spot, like more documenting, not creating, I'm able to kind of, when I'm doing my workflow, yes, the videos have taken anywhere between 15 hours plus to edit, but they're in a flow of events. So it's very sequential to do. Whereas if I'm trying to do something creative, it's like trying to get this angle, that shot. It just, to be honest, I don't necessarily enjoy the editing process as much. So being able to document has made that a lot easier to do.
Gotcha.
Now with the social side, because I have a side business, and I've always been, in the blogging space, I've done a lot of social stuff a lot in the past. So it's a quick win for me to be able to just leverage it, to kind of take, whether it's, some of the stuff I've shared in my stories on Instagram and stuff, it's a lift and shift and I can do it quite quickly. So that to me, I haven't found very difficult to do. That's probably, I can knock that out in, if I've got 10 minutes, I could kind of just quickly pull something together. And then I guess the other one is then, career and family. So obviously I've talked about work. That's been a challenge, and it continues to be a challenge. And hopefully some of those changes will start to show soon. But from a family side, I guess I mean, I still live at home with my parents. So, and I'm not married or anything yet. So yeah. So in that sense, it's probably kind of been a bit of an advantage because I haven't had to, have, obviously there's certain obligations and stuff you need to attend to. And I've tried to make sure I'm also giving family time as well. But I think in that sense, it hasn't been too big of a problem because, I haven't had those responsibilities of, I don't have kids and stuff like that. So that's made it a lot easier. But, at the same time, it's, I haven't been able to see my girlfriend. And so there's pros and cons, right?
Of course,
But
yeah.
I think, there's definitely been some positives and negatives from those situations. And I think being able to just leverage what I can where I can is the best way to look at it, and hence being a fine juggling act.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there's no easy answer. I think if people are struggling to be motivated of getting content out, I think it comes down, you need to understand your why. And because when you're just forcing things out, you're not going to be motivated to do it. There was times when I wasn't getting to start editing till 10 p.m., but I'm like half sleepy because as soon as I get into that mentality, you're dozing off. So I'm like, well, I can give 30 minutes, but I can only give 30 minutes because I'm falling asleep. So I may as well just sleep because I'm not going to be productive, and I'll get up early and do it. So, finding those compromises, but still get it done. And I mean, I got the content out. Sometimes it got out later, but at the end of the day, it didn't necessarily make a huge impact. I know I felt kind of humbled, I guess, or overwhelmed when, I was getting it out at a certain period, and then someone messaged me saying, "Hey, dude, you haven't dropped a video this week. Are you okay?" And I was just like, it it didn't shock me, but I was kind of like, I guess, surprised by it. I was like, oh, wow, like my stuff's making a difference to someone else's life, right? And I
Yeah,
think,
yeah, yeah.
I guess that's also what I've started to enjoy and like, is that building that community, you're motivated to get it out, right? And you want to get it out, and
Absolutely.
you want to. I feel I have an obligation to that community now, right? Which isn't, it's not a chore. It's something that I enjoy doing. So therefore, I want to, do whatever I can to get it out to you guys as soon as possible, because, well, that's the service I'm kind of providing now, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely well said. Yeah, I mean, that's my favorite part of the whole YouTube thing. But I'm so similar to you in the sense that, yeah, when I get down to the editing, it's like, oh God, here comes the grind. But when I think in terms of, the 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 really heartfelt conversations that you have with the people who really do follow closely, um, you
Yeah,
know, it's just so worth it, because,
100%,
it's just
100%.
the impetus for such learning and for such bonding with people you'd otherwise never meet.
Yeah, and I think this year, I mean, I look, I don't want to keep saying that because of COVID, it's been better off, but I must admit, because, I haven't been able to see my friends in person, I haven't been able to do my usual things out and about and stuff, to find that connection, I've fallen into my community, and I've grown more this year than I have in the last, well, I've grown, I started this year probably just shy of 400 subscribers, and now I'm at 550. So the amount of growth I've had in 6 months, or I guess 10 months now, has been outweighed the percentage increase over the last 4 years, right? So,
Yeah,
and then there's been the relationships I've built. There's been some OGs which have been here since day one, and we still have that ongoing conversation. But it's really this year that, because those people are in the same circumstance, that they're looking for people to connect and reach out to, and we've bonded so much, even doing this, right? Like, there's that additional level of like, okay, it's not just someone leaving a comment and saying yo, right? There's actually a authentic conversation. Let's connect, let's grow together, let's we're all in this together kind of thing. And I think that's really resonated with me a lot, and a lot of people don't get it. Like, if they're not in the YouTube, people are like, oh, what do you mean your friend online? I'm like, oh no, my YouTube friends. Is like, but where are they from? I'm like, I've got people from Canada, I've got people from US, I've got people from all over the places. And to be honest, majority of them are overseas and not Australia.
yeah, yeah,
It's bizarre, but like, I'm having conversations with people in the sense of like, you feel like you already know them so much because you've chit chatted in comments, or you see what they're sharing, and it's just like, oh yeah, I know you. So having a call with them, it's not weird. It's kind of like, I feel like we're besties or something, right? Like,
yeah.
it's
Exactly,
it's
exactly,
great.
exactly.
And I think, as you said, that's what makes it so special and so great. And I think, coming back to one of my areas in my videos was around, 1,000 true fans or super fans, and finding people that are genuinely there for you and vice versa, because I'm there to serve my audience and community, whereas they're there because they're enjoying what I'm giving them. So it's it works both ways. It works both ways.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, and well said too. So yeah, I mean, you always sort of lay it out there. That as I said earlier, that's one of the reasons I think probably why you've grown so much. I think when you made that decision to sort of let it all hang out, that I think it resonated, and I know it did with me, and that sort of brought for me, it brought your channel. It made it bigger and it made it deeper, because I originally found you because you were a guy who was training for a marathon,
Yeah.
and now it's kind of like, oh, that's Chris. He's the guy who like really tells you everything and shares his life, and he's just this awesome guy. So it's like now,
Thank you.
it's one of those things where as soon as I see a new thumbnail from you, it's like, oh, I don't even think twice. I'm on it, not
Yeah.
because there's an obligation to you as a fellow YouTuber. It's
Yeah.
oh, that's Chris. That's my friend. That's the guy. I can't wait to hear what he has to say this week. So I think
That's very encouraging. Thank you.
well, I mean, it's nothing but the truth, and I know there are a lot of people out there who feel exactly the same way. And keep on rocking it, dude.
And that's why I will keep on doing it, because I mean that's what I think, realizing that, and it's not even realizing that, but hearing that, it's to me it's still quite, I think the next thing I need to learn is to try and I don't know how to respond to those things. It's still quite overwhelming, right? And I think it's not like I've blown up and I've got thousands and thousands of subscribers, but when you've got those those key small clusters of folks which are sharing that, and like your content that you're bringing, it's like wow, like I never expected. And even going through the series, I had people that aren't even on the YouTube, and they've just sent me a message from Instagram, and they've just said like, what you're doing is inspiring. And I'm like, for me to then realize, like, I never thought I would, it's a weird mentality to think that I'm inspiring you. Like yeah, it's quite overwhelming. So thank you. I do cherish that. Thank you.
No, it's really all the truth, and I'm looking forward to everything that is coming from you in the future. But just to keep the ball rolling here, I do want to ask you, what are your hobbies? What are your interests outside of YouTubing and running in social media that maybe people don't already know about?
Yeah, so there's a lot. I've tried to, and good thing you sent this in advance, because I've tried to kind of break it down, but I think there's probably even more than this. But I think if I broke it down, and these are in no particular order. So outside of work and running, I like to do stuff in the garden. So I actually started a second YouTube channel, which has kind of disappeared. And hopefully I'll be able to get that moving and grooving eventually one day again, because I've got about 2 years of content I've never actually shared, but I documented building a veggie garden from scratch, and then getting chickens and then growing it out. And
Cool.
it was really, really good. And I've still got all that content. So it's definitely a project I can do in the future. So, in the garden with my chickens, I love doing side hustles and things like that. So when I say side hustle, so I have a side business called Furry, which is actually kind of tailored to my last name Furlong, and then it was just, I don't know, just stuck. But it's about furthering your lifestyle, and just, I guess, encouraging people to pursue their passions, and to take hold of whatever their passion or hobby may be, and turn it into something which can be of a longer a tenure, or something into a job or a side hustle. Then there's video games, and lots of other side. Like, I mean, I've got hobbies from fishing to metal detecting to lots of just different. I guess I almost feel like a lot of my hobbies are very scavenger based. Like, I feel like like to go out, to collect, and then build up something from it. And I do like those kind of things. The other one is like flipping, or thrifting, or like reselling as well. I love being able to go to like op shops and garage sales, and pick up. I guess it's probably like being a bit of a entrepreneur background, in terms of seeing something of a potential and being able to make something from it. I remember back when I was like 12 or 13, like buying trading cards off my friends for like 20 bucks and then selling them for like $150 on eBay, right? And I've always cherished that, and I guess that's, I think, being away from, once again, COVID, you realize some of the things you miss and want to do more of. And that will probably be something else that will come to my channel, because it's something else I want to share. And other areas have been personal finance and investing as well. So there's a lot, and so many different things, which I think, that's why I've got running on my channel, but these hobbies and other areas, I think a lot of people, they're runners too, and going through doing the same things, or and they would be of value to share. So yeah, so if I break it down, there's probably flipping, thrifting, video games, gardening, working on my side business, and yeah, there's plenty more.
That's awesome. So generally a healthy curiosity for everything in life. That's what it sounds like. That's awesome.
There's a bit of everything, right? It's and I think, yeah, that's definitely one. Oh, and so the other one I forgot to mention is I play drums as well. So I used to teach drums. I haven't obviously taught this year because of the situations, but I'm a drummer as well.
Oh man. Okay. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that after we after we stop the recording.
Seen your pictures of your guitars.
Yeah. It's funny because I've been I've been trying to put together a little plan for fellow running YouTubers. You're going to fit right into this. For now, I'm going to keep it under wraps, everybody. But I promise this will be something that goes public soon enough. But moving on from that, sir, I want you to talk a little bit about, sorry, excuse me. I hope my dog isn't making too much noise. He's
Oh no.
hanging around my feet here and just starting to make a lot of noise. But yeah, if you don't mind talking a little bit about how running has changed your life for the better.
Yep. So if I break it down, it's probably 5 things, I think. First one being, well, I mean, it's the first point, but it's kind of 3 things, but, definitely mental, physically, and emotionally. First, physically, with the weight loss, and then it's turned into something which was of fun and joy that I just enjoyed doing. But I realized that was more because of the mental elements of it, and, how it was able to free my mind and just kind of really just break free of everything, whether it was just because I needed a break or just wanted to get out and run or had a stressful day. That's definitely what it's become now. And obviously in the last few weeks, it's been more of emotional and building, I guess, who I am, and helping me really carve out, because when you're out running a lot, you have a lot of time to think. So,
Yeah.
You start to, it's good. And I think listening to the audiobooks, and a lot of them have been self-improvement and biographies and, different novels. They've all been familiar of, to getting to the next thing, and growth, and who do I want to be. And so, I think that's really been, I guess, the bulk of how it's changed my life. So, actually, that's probably not even 5 things. It's probably those real 3 things. The other one being, now I mean, if it's not those, it's, I mean, I love running for fun, right? And to think that, people think that's okay, that's weird, but I think once you go through those journeys of, running, and it's not just for weight loss, but then running is more than just that. And now I mean, if I don't get to do my run than when I normally would want to, because it's like, crazy storm outside, or, you're under the weather, or you've got an injury, like it takes a toll on me. Like I feel frustrated, you get angst. It's like, if you take away a video game from a child, they're like, why can't I play? Right. Like, so, and it's not that I want to be out doing, running every single moment of the day, but it's a part of my life, which is now, well, it's a part of my life. So I want to be able to make sure I can do that when I want and how I want. And when I can't, it becomes quite frustrating. So I think the other piece has been the growth element of it, because, I can tangibly see results, whether it's been from the physical or whatever. And I think that's maybe why I like all the stats, is because, I can see that, okay, my last one was this, that same route. And now if I do it again, I can start to compare and then understand why didn't it work. And, there's just so many things you can think about, and I enjoy exploring that a lot. But, seeing that tangible growth, is, yeah, it motivates you. I think anyone can, resonate with that, that when you are seeing the results, you're going to be motivated by it. So why wouldn't you
Absolutely.
keep them?
Absolutely. That's what still keeps me going to this day, you know.
Yeah.
Cool, sir. I'm going to, when I first started asking this next question to people, I didn't realize it could be taken in more than one way, but so now you will be the first person that I ask this question a little bit differently. I'd like you to share your favorite piece of advice for runners and or YouTubers that either someone has passed on to you that really resonated with you, or that's original that you just think is something that you'd like to pass on to others.
Yeah. So I think the one that's probably, I mean, there's so many different things, and I've got a video on this of what I've learned, as a YouTuber, over, getting to 500 subs, which, is more, more particular to a YouTuber. But I think those same things apply to runners. But if I could take out one piece of that, it would be, don't compare yourself to others further on the timeline. I think, we can be broken down into, I mean, there's so many categories, but if I could break it down, you're kind of like, there's a starting stage, a growing stage, and then there's an influencing stage. But you're always going to be in one of those stages, regardless. Even if, if I look at, someone, if I look at it from a YouTuber perspective, or a runner, someone that's a pro athlete, or someone with 1 million subscribers, to me, they look like they're the success. They're the person I'm aiming to be. So therefore they influence me. Now, I'm in a growing stage, so I'm, moving towards that. That's what I'm aspiring to be like.
Mhm.
But to someone else, they see me as that success, as that
Yeah.
influencer, as someone they want to aspire to be like. So I think, you always, and I have to do it to myself all the time, of just check yourself, before you wreck yourself, in terms of, don't overdo it in terms of, comparing and trying to think, oh, well, how does he do that? He did it so well. I had someone ask me, he's like, oh, you make it look so easy. And I'm like, this stuff is not easy, right? I mean, I've done this over, 15 weeks, 20 weeks. And, that's why I want to make sure people see the stuff that I'm doing to get to where I am, because anyone can do it, but you have to take the steps to do it. It's going to be hard work, and it's like anything in life, right? And I think the running and the YouTube, it goes quite parallel, right? Like, you want to put time and effort into YouTube, you'll get the results, right? And I mean, I've been doing it for years, and people ask me, why don't I have more subscribers? And I'm like, I ask myself that all the time, right? And I think, well, how can I do something different? Is it just, is it things that I can't control? But at the end of the day, playing back with that same mentality of, well, not comparing to others, but understanding your why. Because if you don't have a clear why, well, then, I mean, you're just doing it for the wrong reasons. Some people, it might be like, I want to earn a living from YouTube, which is great, right? That's your why. Or people I just want to make content because I enjoy doing it, and that's your why. And I think once you know what that is, and it will change, it will evolve. It's the same for running. Going through my marathon, I started off that I had a goal. That was my why. But then halfway through, I realized, okay, I'm not going to get my goal. So I need to kind of really understand, well, why am I really doing this? If a goal never existed of a time, I'm running a marathon for me to prove that I can do it, to really, it's for personal growth, right? So understanding that takes away that pressure of a goal time. If I don't get the goal time, well, then it doesn't matter, because it's a marathon. I've already achieved something, which is great. So
Exactly.
I think that those would be my two pieces of advice of, don't compare yourself to others further on the timeline. And, to understand where you are on the timeline, but it works both ways. If people are reaching up to you, you need to be given the love back, in terms of, I think that's the other thing that can really destroy people trying to learn to run or learn on YouTube is, you can be disheartened quite easily when you're getting into it, because everything's quite overwhelming. It's a tough gig, right? Everyone's trying to, make their own, make their own way. All right. And, I think if you can share a bit of love, or, even if it is a comment back or whatever, I think it goes a long way to help others. And we're not all going, I mean, I always feel bad when I haven't watched people's content when they're always watching mine, but I have always the intent to get to it, or even if it means I can just get it and give some love back, because, I know what it means, when they do it to me, I know how it means, right? But, we're not all going to have that, that kind of bromance relationship, or, you're not always going to connect with everyone on that tight level. And
Yeah.
that can't be expected. But I think, you know, if you're building a community, my intent is always to, you know, share the love, give back, and hopefully grow with each other. And um, it's always, I guess, a fear of mine of like, you know, someone's sharing and I've like missed something and I never responded, and you know, that's never my intent. It's always, I mean, other people, you know, have way more subscribers and getting more comments than me, and they're like, there's just so much to keep up with, and that will be something else that I'll have to learn and understand as I progress. But I think, you know, I think it still comes down to, you know, just making sure that you're not comparing yourself to others further on the timeline, and just do you. That's all you can do.
Exactly. Perfectly said, sir. I think that those are wise words for runners and YouTubers. And those words actually do resonate with me because, as you said very briefly in the middle of all that, there are times when you find yourself getting frustrated. And I think that's probably true. I know it's true of me. Absolutely. I don't think there's a day that goes by where, you know, I don't, you know, log into YouTube or whatever the case may be, or I come back for a run and it didn't go exactly the way I wanted it to. And you start to think, well, why am I doing this in the first place? And then and then you get yourself calmed down and you go, well, I'm doing it because I love talking with the people who really sort of get me on YouTube. And I love running because it's supposed to be a stress reliever, not something that gives you more stress.
Exactly. It is. It's
But
very true.
everything you just said resonates so well with me, and I know it does with everybody who's sat through this whole interview. And it's really been a pleasure, sir.
Thank you.
You're I don't know the proper way to say this, but you're wiser than your years. To this day, I still learn a lot from watching you on there. And again, I'm going to encourage everyone, go over to Chris's channel and get yourself subscribed. You will not regret it. It's a great experience, and he brings so much to the running community and to the YouTube community. You will not regret it. And with that, sir, I want to give you the opportunity to talk about the best ways for people to find you, not just on YouTube, but throughout all of the social media world, and anything else that applies.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity. Firstly, it's been great, and yeah, I always do struggle when people do give positive feedback and compliments, because it's very overwhelming. So thank you very much.
It's all well deserved, sir.
So for people to contact me, I do try to keep everything as consistent as possible. So obviously on YouTube, I'm known as CL Furlong, but that's similar for my Instagram. It's _CL Furlong _ I think if anyone goes to either of those, you'll be able to then find other things that I have, because I do have like a link to a Linktree bio where it's got all my highlighted things that I want people to access. I would usually say you can go to my website, CL Furlong, but it's currently under construction because I'm revamping it. So, well, you can go there and see, but it will just redirect back to YouTube anyway. So I think at this point, YouTube would probably be the best. And of course, if there are fellow Instagrammers, that's where you'll see the most. I am on Twitter and other things, but it really is just YouTube and Instagram where you'll get the most out of me, or see the most latest up-to-date information.
Gotcha. Okay, and I'll link all that below so that it's easy to find. So
thank you.
No worries there. Again, sir, it was a pleasure. I knew this was going to be a good conversation because I feel like I knew you before we even started this process. But, we went places that I didn't expect, and I think it was a really fruitful conversation, and I know people are really going to get a lot out of this one. So thank you for participating. Your openness and your upbeat attitude are just always appreciated, and thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. I mean, it was all kind of, we wrapped, I mean, we figured this out all at the last minute, right? In terms of, would you want to come on? And I think I'm so glad we did it as quick as soon as we did, because it's a great opportunity, and I appreciate you. Yeah, I mean, I'm overwhelmed with it, so it's great. I feel quite honored, and thank you very much for having me.
Cool. Very, very welcome, sir. Thank you for being here again, and I hope you enjoy. You're like almost a day and a half, or a good 15 hours ahead of me, I think. So
Yeah,
your
it's
weekend is probably
11.
already coming
It's
to a
almost
close.
11:30 on Sunday.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, for me, it's Saturday night. For you, it's Sunday morning.
Yep.
Yeah, enjoy what is left of your weekend, sir. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye, sir.